Chapter 52. Callum. Effing Bria, my wolf growled, lashing out inside of me to break free from my control. He seized inside my body, throwing and shoving at my insides. Find mate now. We need her. We need to protect her. I crumpled Bria's note in my hand and cut my claws into the thin paper, fury rushing through my entire being. Teeth lengthening into sharp canines, fingernails extending into deadly claws, my wolf ached for control. If I gave it to him, he'd make senseless fucking choices. He wasn't in the right mind, but hell, neither was I. Our mate was gone, and I might have known the real reason why she left, but I still couldn't stop thinking about how she left me. After I waited years for her. My heart was breaking, shattering, fucking destroying me. Bria left me, and I wasn't doing a thing about it. I was just wallowing in my self-pity. Someone knocked on my office door, then pushed it open. Mom grasped onto the handle for dear life as she stepped into the room. Her torso was wrapped in bandages, yet she didn't show a single bit of pain on her face. She never did. She closed the door behind her and frowned at me. Callum. She went with them willingly, Mom, I said through gritted teeth, hands balled into tight fists. She traded her life for our safety because she didn't think we would be able to defeat them, and we couldn't. I fucking couldn't. Callum, she said, moving closer. It's not your fault. I couldn't protect my mate, I said, my anger fading away in my voice, becoming throaty and hoarse. My chest tightened. If anything happened to her, I would never forgive myself. I would never be able to lead my pack as an alpha, knowing that I let my mate, who I waited decades for, trade her life to protect my people, who she barely knew, and me. It's what any caring and worthy Luna would do, Mom said. She barely even knows anyone or what Lunas do. She knows nothing about being a wolf. I haven't taught her enough. I should have drilled it into her. Should have forced her to learn, to train, to be with our pack more often. Mom smiled. She doesn't have to know what Lunas do or the rules most alphas make their Lunas follow, like caring for their pack. Strong Lunas lead by example. They do what's right for the group instead of just for her. I shook my head and cursed underneath my breath, knowing that she was right. Bria must have thought that sacrificing herself was the only way to stop the madness, but still it didn't feel right. I should have been there tonight, not fucking ignoring her. She was mine. She belonged to me, not him. And I refused to let Tiago torture her for eternity, to take her wolf away from her, to force her to live in fear forever. Bria might have been the Luna of this pack, but she was my long-awaited mate. I would get her back even if it killed me. But you're the alpha, Callum, Mom said. Alphas might do anything to protect their pack, but they would also sacrifice everything to protect their mate. Whatever you're planning on doing, know that I support you. I want to do everything in my power to protect you, but I know you'll run off to find her. Either way, you're my only son. Be safe. I will. Storming out of my destroyed office and to the others gathered downstairs, I faced my pack. They knew that Bria was gone, and they had probably heard me going fucking crazy upstairs, but fuck. Nobody dared to say a word. Running to the council's pack to retrieve Bria is dangerous, I said, clenching my jaw. Part of me wished that I didn't always lead by example, that I didn't take all those one alpha lessons to heart, that I forced people to do what I wanted them to do. But I wasn't like Tiago, and maybe that would kill Bria. I would have to fucking live with that shit. Tiago's pack won't go easy on us. They'll try to kill us, and they might succeed. If you don't want to come with me, stay back. We've been attacked. Understand that you're wounded, but I'm leaving. I won't let my mate trade her life for us. After a couple moments of silence, I inhaled sharply, pushed my shoulders back, and walked to the front door to leave my pack behind and find my mate. When I reached the door, I yanked it back with such ferocity, my wolf slowly taking control, that I ripped the door right off its hinges. Hey, Beta Milo shouted, following me toward the door along with a group of warriors. You're not going alone. Bria might not have transformed into a wolf yet, but she's still our Luna. She's sacrificed her life for all of us, not just you. I glanced back at the warriors, catching Jasmine and Levi not bickering for once and standing tall beside Aiden's pack warriors, who looked ready for any battle that Tiago could throw at them. We're coming too, Jasmine said, glancing over at Levi. Bria's our friend. Me too, Adon said, glancing back at his warriors. I know the ins and outs of that place. They're lacking security on the northern border. I've snuck in with my warriors many times before to retrieve Bria medication and intel. They have a science wing toward the west, and their security room is on the upper level. After looking back at my warriors, I transformed into my wolf and turned toward the forest, howling to the moon that had risen some time ago. Then we run, find Bria, and destroy the council for good. Chapter 53. Be alright. When the doctor fell lifelessly to the ground, I sprinted toward the door and opened a keypad, hitting random keys and hoping that I would be able to unlock the room somehow. I racked my brain for any sort of code that Tiago would have used. 768. No. 9,129. Nothing. 666. Because he was the devil himself. Nada. Annoyed, I slammed my palm against the keys and hit enter a bunch of times. Didn't know the code and would never be able to figure it out. While I might have only met Tiago a couple of times, I didn't know shit about him. Most of the time, Mom and Dad would knock me out while I was here and they were running tests on me. Hell, I didn't even know that I had one alpha inside of me until I read that book that Callum had. Tiago and my parents would always mention one alpha, but I thought it was some type of gene or something. I didn't think it was an actual wolf lingering inside me. How the hell would I put that together? But now I wished I had figured it out sooner. I wished that I had found the time to understand Tiago's motivations, snooped into his offices, found something that would help me get the fuck out of here. After searching the doctor for a key card and finding nothing, I paced the room, back and forth until I was nearly ripping my hair out, searching for another way to escape. It was useless. I sprinted back up to the locked door and threw my body against it, summoning my wolf. My body dented the metal slightly, but it didn't budge. I slammed my body against it again and again, the dent becoming larger and deeper. On the fifth slam, the door snapped open. Yet it wasn't because of me. Tiago stood on the other side of the doorway, eyes a piercing gold and canines extended. He stormed into the room and slammed the door behind him, growling low and deep, trying to intimidate me. I stepped back, heart pounding inside my chest. "What the fuck are you doing?" he asked. "And where is my doc?" He glanced down at the ground, where I had killed his doctor in cold blood, and then he looked at the equipment he was using. Before he could even use the $1,000 equipment, I grabbed a spare part that had fallen to the ground from my initial struggle with the scientist and smashed it to pieces, making sure that the machine wasn't usable in the slightest. He could never find out those results. Ever. In one of Callum's books, I read that one alpha could be passed down from mother or father to child. If Tiago found out about the results, he would rip my womb right out of my body with his claws. He wouldn't care, he wanted the power for himself. "Get over here, you little bitch," he seethed, stalking closer to me. "You're going to fucking pay for that shit." I hurled the broken piece of equipment at him, and then my wolf forced me to drop to all fours. She seized control of my body. My bones snapped, the harrowing sound echoing through the entire room. My claws lengthened, my canines extending, and for the first time my body transformed into that of a wolf standing tall in front of Tiago. Fear flashed in his eyes and he stepped back. I lifted my paw, new and improved senses overcoming me. But when I went to stalk forward, I stumbled. Tiago furrowed his brows, then straightened his back and smirked down at me. It worked. He chuckled menacingly as I stumbled forward again, my vision blurring. What was happening? Why couldn't I walk straight? "You already have the drug in your system," he said. "There's no fighting it. Close your eyes, Bria, and sleep for me. When you awaken, you will be mine for good." Desperately, I forced my eyes open, blinking the darkness away as much as I could. But it was consuming me, spreading around my vision, taking control of me. Clenched my jaw and forcefully rubbed my eyes with my paws, hoping that the dark would fade. Still nothing. I couldn't see any light. My fingers were numbing. My limbs tingled. My head was light and fuzzy. With all my might, I tried to fight the brainwashing chemical that they pumped into me. But the world faded quickly around me, my consciousness succumbing to the darkness and Tiago's evil voice echoing through my head. Worst of all, I knew I was about to lose consciousness and could do nothing about it. All I could seem to do was think about Callum, the doctor's test, and how Tiago could never find out the test results, that the first shot of sterilization didn't work and that I might be pregnant. Yet if he gained control of me, he would soon know everything. He would kill my baby and then he would kill me. Chapter 54. Callum. After sneaking onto Tiago's property from the northern border, like Adon suggested, we split into our 2 packs. Adon was to sneak into the castle and cut the security cameras, destroy any footage of us being there, and kill as many council members as possible. We were to head right for the cells in the prison where they were probably holding Bria. Once we killed the 2 guards at the doors, we snuck into the palace and rushed through each of the prison cells, desperately trying to find my mate and the Pax Luna. But every cell that we stepped into was empty. No dead bodies. No blood. No Bria. Where the fuck is she? I asked myself, looping around the cells once more and glancing into each one of them, as if I had missed her the first time. Yet something wasn't clicking for me. This place sounded a bit too quiet to house all of the council members. Alpha, one of my warriors, said from the door we walked into. You might want to see this. Hurrying out the door, I stopped dead in my tracks when I saw Tiago holding Adon, fucking Adon, the man who I could barely put a scratch on during our fight, by the scruff of the neck. Beaten and bleeding all over, Adon hung lifelessly in Tiago's arms. Adon! Jasmine screamed, lunging toward him. I pulled her back, knowing that Tiago would kill her in a moment's notice. She struggled in my hold for a moment, and then Levi seized her body to hold her back. I stepped toward him and growled, "Let me go and give me Bria." "I promised Bria that I wouldn't attack you unless provoked," Tiago said. "I'd say that this is a sure reason to kill you now, don't you think?" Taking another step forward, I clenched my jaw. "If you fucking touched her, I'll kill you." "Touched Bria?" Tiago asked. "Me? Never. Where the fuck is she?" "Oh." Tiago chuckled darkly. "I don't think you really want to see what she's become now," I growled, about to lose total fucking control. "I'll call Bria out, but I'm warning you. She might not even recognize you or your wolf." My heart raced and I balled my hands into fists. "Bria," Tiago cooed. "Come here." A midnight black wolf, almost my size, stalked out from behind him, canines extended and dripping with saliva and claws digging into the hardening dirt. She glared right at me, her mate, and let out a ferocious growl. "I can make her play," Tiago taunted, a smirk across his face. "Wanna see?" After growling at him, I stepped forward. "I will kill you." "Jump for me, Bria," Tiago said, not once looking at Bria but keeping his gaze focused on me. And as he finished his sentence, Bria's enormous wolf leaped high into the air. Tiago placed his hand on the top of her head. "Good girl." Another growl clawed its way out of my throat. "Let her go." He knelt down and wrapped his arm around her torso, stroking her black fur and whispering something into her ear. When he turned back to me, he smirked. "Bria Benton is now my plaything." My wolf seized control of me and I leaped forward, running at full speed toward him. Bria Benton was mine, nobody else's. Tiago stood up and let go of Bria, nodding toward me. "Attack your mate, Bria. Show him how powerful you truly are." Chapter 55. Be alright. Claws extended, canines aching for flesh, focused solely on Callum, I leaped at my mate. A carnal rage inside me urged me forward to fight him with everything that I had, to sink my teeth into any bit of flesh that I could, to prove myself and to kill him. Tiago ordered my wolf to slaughter his, and my wolf craved to do just that. The world turned to chaos around me. Tiago's warriors fighting Callum's and Aiden's. Callum shifted into his wolf and dodged my attacks one after the other. But I didn't stop moving forward toward him, even when the battlefield reeked of blood. I couldn't stop. I wanted to so badly. "Bria," Callum said through the mind link, but my wolf didn't stop. We slashed his shoulder, making him bleed out slightly. He healed it quickly and dodged another one of my attacks, ducking underneath my paw. I leaped forward, growling, and snatched his paw between my teeth. "Stop it." Callum wasn't fighting as hard as he had during his battle with Adon. He was either already hurt or he didn't want to hurt me. Deep down I knew it was the latter. He would rather die himself than to see me in pain. And I couldn't fucking believe that my wolf didn't recognize it, her own mate. I desperately tried to stop myself, but my wolf wouldn't seize back control from Tiago. He had pumped that fluid into our bloodstream the same way he had probably done that to his hundreds upon hundreds of warriors before me, and taken complete control. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't stop my body or my wolf. "I'm so scared, Callum," I said through the mind link. While I didn't know if he could hear me, he didn't respond, which killed me. More on the inside. I had to endure my wolf, her aggression, and that stupid brainwashing liquid that Tiago pumped into me all by myself. It was so damn lonely. I had no control. My wolf stabbed him in the underbelly with her extended claws. Pain ripped through my chest, my heart shattering into a million fucking pieces at the sudden hurt in his eyes. He stumbled back and squeezed his eyes closed for the briefest moment to heal his wound, but it didn't seal right back up like it usually did. This wound was deep. Harder, Bria, Tiago called from the edge of the battlefield as he walked backward through the woods, probably to somewhere safer. You've weakened him. Enough. I want you to kill him. Go for his stomach. At the sound of Tiago's orders, my wolf went crazy. She stalked toward our mate like he was some kind of prey, licked her bloody lips, and roared at Callum, our fucking mythology professor, because Tiago told us to. Please, I cried to my wolf through our mind link. Please stop this. Kill, she growled back. Kill Callum. He's our mate. Our mate. I growled back, desperate to take control and not submit to her. There wasn't a damn chance in hell that I could kill Callum, but my wolf didn't even recognize him as our mate anymore. She called him by his first name, which she never did. She saw him as a threat, not as the man we loved. This wasn't right. This wasn't fucking right. Stop. I screamed at her. Now. Please. I tried desperately to dig my heels into the ground, to heal, to stop, to do something. But my wolf was stronger than my will. Fighting against a ruthless, savage beast wasn't an option. I didn't have any fight in me. I had been running and hiding from Tiago all my life. Now I had a fucking wolf inside of me who wouldn't stop hurting the only person who ever loved her. Seeing an opening, my wolf forced me to leap forward and pummel Callum onto his back so hard that I heard a crack in what must have been his spine. Terror rushed through me. I couldn't stop this, nor could I stop her. We stalked toward him, our blood-soaked teeth bared at our mate. With those golden eyes, Callum stared up at me. Not in fear. Not in fright. In anguish. He wasn't going to fight me back. He wasn't going to stop me. He made that clear. Please, I begged her. Don't do this. My wolf stepped over him, one paw on either side of his body, then sank her canines into his underbelly. She sank her teeth as deeply as they could go and pulled back up with a chunk full of his flesh in her mouth. I tasted Callum's blood, his flesh on my tongue. Blood poured out of his wound, creating a puddle on the ground underneath him. I forced my wolf to drop his flesh from our mouth and backed up slowly, wanting her to see what she had done, the pain she had caused. This was never supposed to happen. Why couldn't she snap out of it? Bria, Callum said through the link, his voice soft, almost like a whisper. I love you. My entire body froze, hearing each word fade into oblivion, one softer than the next. He closed his eyes, and I feared that he would never open them up again. His muscles all relaxed, his clenched jaw relaxing. This couldn't be how it ended. Standing over his body, I shook my head. Mate, my wolf whispered to me, pain shooting through our entire body, and finally realizing what we had done. We hurt mate. Chapter 56. Callum. My own mate bit to kill me. Unable to stop myself, I shifted into my human form and grasped my bleeding abdomen. Blood poured out of my stomach, the muscle torn in 3 different places. I winced and scrambled back, pain shooting through me and my wolf. Bria, I whispered, wanting her to gain back control. She could do it. She could escape whatever type of spell that Tiago had placed over her. This wasn't the real her, and it surely wasn't her wolf. Her wolf recognized me. She wouldn't be reacting this way. We were mates, forged by the moon goddess. Bria, answer me, I whispered through the link, wanting her to acknowledge me. Mate. Instead of answering me or even looking me in the eyes, she backed up a couple of inches. Fear flashed through her eyes, as if she finally understood what she had done. Bria stopped and stared at me in complete shock. Then she turned around in disgrace and sprinted after Tiago, following in his fucking footsteps while I bled out everywhere because of her. She didn't answer me. She didn't look in my direction. She just took off through the woods, running after Tiago, who had brainwashed her into thinking that I needed to be eliminated, that I needed to die by her hands. Tiago must have still had control of her. In a wave, all of Tiago's warriors followed Bria through the woods, rushing past her and running faster and harder to follow Tiago to wherever he had gone. I stumbled to my feet and toward her, tripping over my own legs and collapsing to the ground. Mate hurt us, my wolf said through my head, his voice lower than it usually was. He didn't understand that this wasn't Bria. All he thought was that the woman we waited over 43 years for had intentionally bitten us because she wanted to kill us, that she didn't love us anymore and would do anything in her power to run away. Determined to prove him wrong, I stood to my feet again, walked 2 feet, and fell. Blood poured between my fingers, and I called out for Bria to stop. Again. I called her name first and then last, told her that her mate wanted her back, that we still loved her no matter what. Yet she didn't stop running. She would go back to Tiago to regroup and come at us harder and faster than they had last time. Who knew what kind of torture shit he had been hiding around the castle? I had seen the stuff he had in the prison cells and dungeon. If they captured my pack. I glanced around to see my pack and Aiden's pack lying on the battlefield. Most were still alive, but some weren't moving even in the slightest. I clenched my jaw and growled again, standing and moving forward another few feet. Someone needed to stop Tiago. If I didn't stop it, Bria would kill me and have to live like that forever. My mate deserved more than that. She barely knew about wolves, barely understood how we lived or how to control herself. Tiago knew exactly what he was doing this entire time. He was grooming her to be his perfect pet, to be the destruction of the wolf species. If there was even a sliver of her conscience left, she must have been terrified. I wouldn't let her do this by herself. I would fight like hell for her. So, despite my bleeding stomach, I shifted into my wolf and followed behind her. Chapter 57. Be alright. Callum followed me. My wolf listened to his slower and unsteady footsteps behind me. I pumped my legs faster and farther than I thought I could, than I ever had. Had never been a runner, but I refused to stop and refused to let Callum catch up to me. I feared that I would lose control again and kill him. What was worse, I didn't think that I could go back to face him. My wolf fucking hurt him. I allowed her to bite him, to rip his flesh from his body, to almost kill him. How could I ever forgive myself for something as fucked up as that? How could I ever face Callum again? Tiago made me into my worst nightmare. Callum Lee, my professor and the strongest man I had met, wouldn't forgive me for this. A mate who wanted to kill him and hurt his pack was not a great mate, not even a good one. I was nothing but a terrible piece of shit for what I had done to them all. Caused all of this. If I had gone to Tiago when he asked the first time, I would have never met them. Once I had lost Callum, and I was fucking sure of it, I found my way back to Tiago, sniffing out his scent through the thick mud and wooded area around his pack. I had been here so many times. I knew where that asshole was hiding. Like I expected, I found him surrounded by a group of at least 100 warriors, his muscles taut and jaw clenched, eyes a golden fury. He had expected me to kill Callum, and maybe he thought I did, because when he saw me, he smiled. That psychopath smiled. "You've done it, Bria," he said to me, crouching at my level, wiping the blood off my chin with his forefinger and tasting it. "You're free of his chains. Callum will never once walk this earth again and challenge me. Everyone will yield to us, to me." All I wanted to do was leap at him, to fucking kill him here. But I feared that I wasn't strong enough. Tiago had always been stronger, faster and smarter than me. He had captured me, convinced my parents to give me up for money, ran countless tests on me. He knew every bit of me better than I knew myself. So I stood by his side and tried to come up with something, not wanting him to realize that I had broken out of the chains he molded around my mind. I howled in response. I hoped to the moon goddess that he didn't see the tears in my eyes, that he didn't know by the way I cowered, that he couldn't feel the pain shooting through every fucking inch of my body. I didn't deserve the title of mate. My chest tightened. I stared at the ground, trying to figure out a way to get Tiago alone, because I couldn't defeat him like this, not with his entire pack gathered around and awaiting his every order. There were far too many of them, and my heart was in far too much pain. The anguish was bone fucking deep, a pain that hurt my entire soul. "We're going to finish them off, to kill them all unless they surrender to me," Tiago announced to the warrior wolves, who stood in wolf form around me. "Kill every last one of them, except the women and the children. They will be useful in reproducing." Like zombies, the wolves turned toward the direction of Callum's and Aiden's packs, ready to kill. I couldn't wait any longer, knowing that if Tiago and his wolves marched back on Callum and Adon in their packs, they would kill them all. I knew what I had to do. I knew that I had to kill Tiago right here and right now. No matter if he controlled hundreds of wolves. No matter if he turned them all on me. No matter if he killed me. After letting out a low and feral growl, I stopped in my tracks and refused to follow him. Tiago stopped a moment later and tilted his head to the side, making a come hither motion with his fingers. Come here, pup. For a moment the urge to follow him shot through my body, urging me forward. To keep moving, to follow his every order and demand. But I pushed my paws into the dirt and fought the incredible force. Tiago turned around, eyes flashing gold, and growled, "Come here now, Bria." Still I fought the force and didn't move. The other warrior wolves that he controlled stopped moving forward toward where Callum's pack was located and turned to face me, some watching curiously, and others readying to attack not Tiago but me. And I didn't doubt that they would. "Don't make me tell you again, Bria," Tiago said, "or there will be consequences." I guess that he didn't understand that consequences didn't matter to me anymore. I had just given up the best thing in my life, had nearly killed the man I loved more than anything, the man whose pup might be inside my belly right now. Instead of following blindly, I growled, "No." Tiago roared loudly, so loud that my fur blew back. "Now." "No." Tiago shifted into his wolf and growled to the others, "Make her surrender." And so, amid the other warrior wolves lunging at me and snapping their jaws at me, I sprinted toward a shifted Tiago and sank my teeth into his neck. Then, I did something that I never thought I would get to do. I ripped out his throat and killed the fucker. Chapter 58. Callum. With my abdomen bleeding profusely, I hobbled after Bria to find her. But with every step I took, my heart broke just a little bit more. Bria couldn't control herself. This was the first time that I saw her as a wolf, the first time she had shifted, and I hadn't been there to help her out of it. Instead, I fucking let the council take her from me. I let them brainwash her. I knew that she wouldn't be able to control herself when she turned for the first time. I should have fucking been here. I should have been the one leading her and protecting her. But I hadn't been strong enough, nor had I been smart enough either. Yet I persevered and continued. "We aren't strong enough," my wolf said. He had always been the one to hype me up, to make me stronger. Now he didn't think he was good enough to protect Bria because she was stronger than he was. And because she was the one alpha. We had seen it with our own eyes. Even though I wanted to succumb to the pain and the thoughts, I refused. All that mattered was that Bria was out there, brainwashed and terrified of Tiago. When I marked that pretty neck of hers, hell, when I saw her walk through that hallway on the first day of class, I vowed to protect her from all the bad things in this life. She wouldn't slip through my fingers that easily. Bri. Every one of the teeth-bearing wolves around me suddenly stopped lunging at me, the darkness fading from their eyes and their bodies slowly transforming back into their humans. I glanced at every one of them and inhaled sharply, my breath catching. "We're free," one said, dropping to her knees and sobbing uncontrollably. Finally free. Their aggression suddenly turned to intense excitement, their angry expressions transforming into happiness. Each and every one of them transformed from their wolves to their humans and began hugging each other. They were free. And I was free too. Butterflies fluttered in my stomach and I giggled. I fucking giggled the pain away. This was over. All of this was over. I wouldn't have to worry about Tiago messing with my life anymore. We were all free. One of the warriors approached me. "Thank you so much for saving us. We'll do anything for you," another said, falling in front of me and bowing his head. Suddenly, the other wolves followed suit and bowed their heads to me. I stared at them through wide and surprised eyes, not sure what this meant, but wolves did that to Callum. Maybe it was a sign of respect. "You don't need to do anything for me," I said. "Please," a younger male wolf said. "You must want something." I glanced around the wolves and frowned, not sure what to say. "All I want is for this to be over. I don't want anything from any of you. I want to be happy. And to be able to raise my pup without the constant fear of Tiago looming over me." "We will do anything to protect you and your pup," the first man said, grinning widely. My heart raced as I looked at each of the warriors. I also want to help the community. I don't want this to ever happen again. I don't want anyone to fear that they're going to be taken or brainwashed. It's unacceptable. I thought back to my first day of classes. I had been so timid, too timid to even tell Jasmine to back off the guy I liked. But now I felt like I was the most powerful woman alive, and all I wanted to do was to stand up for the weak. And girls and boys like me, the people who had been taken advantage of by anyone, even their family. I want to keep the council. I stood firm in my decision. But I wanted to do good. We can do good, an older woman said to me. We can save this world. My lips curled into a smile and I nodded. I would love that. Anything for the one alpha. And while they all cheered and smiled, celebrated that they were free and that we would change this world for good, all I could think about was Callum. What would he think of me? I had hurt him, had nearly killed him, and endangered his pack. I didn't even know if Tiago brought them those duffel bags filled to the brim with medication. Did they even get healed? Worst of all, I couldn't stop thinking that Callum would reject me the next time I saw him. It was stupid to believe those smutty werewolf books that I had devoured when Callum first caught my eye, but everything in them had been true so far. Sometimes, alphas rejected their mates if they weren't particularly obedient enough. And I had done everything to disobey Callum. I betrayed him. I ran from him. I nearly killed him. No, my wolf whimpered, not even wanting me to think such things. We hurt him and his pack, I said, chest tightening. I wouldn't blame him if he did. The crowd in front of me suddenly became silent. I glanced toward them once, more to see their heads bowed, as if they were giving me permission to lead them on this new and exciting opportunity. But I didn't know the first thing about wolves, even though I was one. Lead us, one wolf said. Please. Nervously I nodded. Okay, I whispered, glancing around until my gaze finally lifted from the warriors and to the wolves behind them. And that was when I saw Callum watching me from a distance, his gold eyes on me and his lips curled into a Chapter 59. Callum. I heard every part of her conversation. What she wanted the council to become. How she wanted to protect the world from monsters like Tiago. Why she needed to be sure that nobody else faced the same horrors as she had. Everything. She stood in the middle of the warriors, who all had their heads bowed to my mate as she spoke, stronger than I had ever seen her. When she waltzed into my class, she had been shy and timid, but not anymore. My mate was growing into a strong and independent woman who didn't take shit. Moonlight glimmering off her hair, she turned and looked over at me. Fear flashed into her eyes, her cheeks paling. She stopped talking and stared at me. For the longest time, I held my side and smiled at her, hoping that she'd calm down. I could feel how anxious she was through the mate bond. Suddenly, she hurried toward me and wrapped her arms around my waist, pulling me close and resting her head on my chest. I'm so sorry for leaving you. Thought what I was doing was for the best. I didn't want anyone to get hurt. After scooping her into my arms, I winced at the pain from my wound, then spun her around and around, my nose buried deep in her hair, breathing in her scent and relaxing with her body pressed against mine. I ignored my wolf, thinking that we weren't enough for her. Because maybe we weren't as strong as one alpha, but that didn't mean we wouldn't try to be like her for as long as we could. It's okay, Bria, I whispered, kissing her forehead and placing her down. I know you wanted to do what was right. Any good Luna would sacrifice their life for the pack, even though you will never. I grasped her chin in my hand and forced her to look up at me. Do something like that again. Bria's eyes wavered. I kissed her on the mouth. Because I love you. You still love me, she whispered. And it broke my fucking heart. I grasped the sides of her face and drew her closer to me, pressing my body against hers so she knew that the only man who would ever touch her again was me. After placing another kiss on her lips, I rested my forehead against hers. Of course I still fucking love you. I kissed her again. You're my mate. But I nearly killed you. She glanced down at the large scar on my abdomen. That would never heal fully, and then she brushed her fingers against it and shivered. I did this to you. I hurt you and endangered everyone. You were brainwashed. But still, guilt built in her eyes. I did this. I stayed quiet, not wanting to say something wrong and make her feel worse. Could deal with the scar and the pain, but I wouldn't be able to deal with never seeing Bria again, especially if Tiago still had her. How did you know that you had one alpha? I asked, curious. Those books that you gave me. I didn't know what it was before I started reading them, but I remembered that when my parents would bring me to see Tiago, and I would go in and out of consciousness, that they were mentioning one alpha. I thought it was a gene or something. Not a real wolf, not this strength or this power. She glanced around at the warriors in the council. They want me to lead them. But how will I be good enough? I don't know anything about werewolves. I don't know how to lead them or how to do what alphas do. My lips curled into a grin, butterflies in my stomach for her. You'll figure it out. Still, I could see the hesitation in her eyes, so I decided to lighten the mood and ask her a question that had been nagging me since I stopped at the edge of the woods and listened to her little speech to the council. So you're pregnant? I asked softly. Her cheeks paled. You heard. I drew my hand over her stomach and kissed her on the lips again, resting my forehead against hers. I heard everything. She gnawed on the inside of her cheek. I don't know for certain yet, but Tiago's doctor had found something on one of the many tests he ran on me. While he had me captured, I wanted to die there, Callum. I thought I deserved it, but when I found out that I might have a pup inside of me, couldn't stand the thought of not fighting for my life. I fought so hard for us. Maybe a little us. He curled his fingers against my belly. Will show up soon. And maybe after 43 years of waiting I would finally get the life that every wolf strived for. I had a mate and maybe a pup too. The moon goddess had granted almost all of my wishes. Only time would